So I got a comment asking me to talk about my lifting philosophies, things I actually believe in, what I follow, and what I would say for most people would be kind of a good framework to follow to actually build your beliefs, to actually have thoughts on lifting. And there's so many different people who claim to be science-based or evidence-based or whatever else, and it's hard to kind of separate what makes good information, bad information, and sort of where you draw the line. So I'll just talk about my philosophies. Obviously, some of them are subject to change. There are certain things I've changed my opinions on over the years, but I'll just talk to you a little bit about what I believe in and that I think might be good to follow. So first thing, we talk about frequency, exercise selection, all those kinds of things. And for the very longest time, people were saying that when volume is equated, frequency doesn't really matter. So if you do 8 sets of triceps on Monday, that's going to be fine. The sort of new approach, at least based on some new research we've had, is that that's not the answer, and that people, when studied, actually did 1 set of triceps on Monday and 1 set on like Thursday. 2 sets for the whole week split across 2 days. Those people actually grew more than doing just one day of 8 sets on Monday. So they did a quarter of the total volume and actually grew more. So I actually believe in frequency very much. So for me, at least, when I do my splits, upper, lower, full body, whatever it is, I'm trying to make sure that I actually hit the muscle frequently. I try to hit it every 48 or 72 hours or so. So a good format for me is upper, lower, rest, or upper, lower, rest. So 4 days on, 1 day off, or 2 days on, 1 day off. But I didn't even always do upper, lower. I did push-pull legs variations for a while. They're not necessarily a bad idea if you do them properly. I personally like chest, delts, biceps on 1 day, then legs, then back and triceps, and then repeat that, or throw a rest day in and repeat it. So those are all fine approaches. You really do just want to be hitting a muscle, in my opinion, more than once a week. And then when it comes to exercise selection, right now, for example, I'm about to do triceps in the 4 to 6 rep range with around 1 rep in reserve. And that sort of ballpark I like for the beginning of a session to limit the total amount of fatigue I'm actually accruing for the triceps. I don't want to do like 4 sets of 20. That's like crazy to put at the beginning of a workout when I have chest work to do after. So it is about limiting fatigue to the best of our ability while also recovering. And people who say, oh, worrying about fatigue is stupid, they obviously either don't train hard or don't train frequently. So that's how I feel about that. We're going to get into a set here real quick so you guys are going to see how I do it. We got 33 pounds plus 5, 38 pounds here. And we're going to get going. Got the Vulcan grip here that I like. Try to stay nice and stable, externally stabilized here, and get some good reps in. So here we go. All right, that was about 5 with maybe 1 or 0 in the tank. A little hard to differentiate. I cheated a little bit. Maybe I could have got the last one, but I'll do 2 sets of this on each side on an upper day here, and that's kind of how I bias triceps here. All right, so more talk about theories and things that I sort of believe in. Obviously, stability is going to be one of the biggest sort of things. So if you're doing like an upper back row kind of thing here, there are a million different ways to do this. Obviously, you got your barbell options, dumbbell options, whatever else. But for me, at least, I'm always opting for the movement that is most stable. So chest pad here in front of us. And again, the main reason for stability, most people know, it's not something that has to be, beaten into death over and over. But again, for people who aren't sort of in on this, the idea is that the more stable something is, the more motor units we're actually able to recruit, because the brain is able to actually put the most amount of effort into actually just completing the movement and not stabilizing yourself. So that's why you would be able to chest press more lying on the floor or lying on a bench than you would, say, on top of a Bosu ball or something like that. So when I'm programming my volume for, say, upper back, whatever I'm doing, I'm always trying to find ways to make it more stable. I'll even, mess with my feet placing here to try to be as dug into the pad as possible. I use my wrist straps here so that I can really, sink my fangs in here and pull pretty much as hard as physically possible. So the stability component is important, and obviously technique-wise, I feel like there's a sweet spot between being super neurotic about your technique and not actually using any weight, or being, excessively swinging stuff and ego lifting and whatever. And this is a machine that, for myself personally, I've actually had to pull back on a couple of times just to get that technique really nailed in. And you'll find that with a lot of machines, once you start full stacking them and whatever, you can be like, hey, you know what? I could actually pull back. I don't need to add more weight. I can actually just pull back and focus on technique and progressively overload that way. So let's get warmed up here. That felt pretty good. focus on scapular retraction here, obviously. So a while ago, I was doing like 240 on here, full stack, whatever. But then I said, wait a minute, I wonder if there's a way for me to actually improve my technique and progressively overload that way. So I'm trying to use less acting tissue, trying to use less core, less everything else, less feet, try to use less everything else, and simply focus on retracting my shoulder blades and actually pulling back this way. So that's kind of my thoughts on this. So right now we have 190, and the goal, of course, is going to be to actually progressively overload, sometimes via improving your technique. It's a very valid option, and with certain machines, you can't just keep stacking weight on. So here we go, gonna hook in, got 190 here. Last time I got this for 6, but again, I'm still in the process of sort of reformatting my execution on this a little bit, so if I get less, I'm not gonna be particularly worried about it. But here we go, focus on actually pulling back and retracting. Here we go. Okay, we're locked in, and let's go. Okay. Whew. So we actually matched our reps this time. We didn't progressively overload per se, but again, technique was awesome. It felt really good for me. Got a little bit of body English when needed, but ultimately that felt really good, and we're gonna keep going here. All right, so philosophy-wise, 2 things in my opinion that I also follow that I want you guys to think about is the role of the muscle, like what actual function does it have, and leverage. So if we're looking at something like the upper chest, I'm sitting on a shoulder press right now, but I have it set up and I have it configured so that I'm gonna orient myself on the machine, and I'm gonna get my arm path set up like this to where I'm actually working in a good degree of shoulder flexion. I'm trying to keep a nice tuck to actually allow my arm to sort of cross over my clavicle here. This is gonna be a good deal of upper chest. Now we will get some front delt involved. That's fine. That's a natural limitation of doing any high incline type of press. But understanding what function the muscle actually has is going to be very important when designing your programming to prevent things from being redundant. A very common example is looking at the mid chest. So the role of the mid chest here is adduction, or pulling the arm across the body. So any kind of fly variation is going to do that. Now, even if you're sitting on an incline fly, if your role is still just taking the arm and putting it across the body, and you're arched to where you're pretty much lining it up with the mid chest anyway, that's pretty much, again, just going to be a mid chest fly. So that is going to be hitting the same thing that a flat press is going to be hitting. So that would be an example of redundant programming. So when you understand the function of a muscle, like what is the muscle actually responsible for doing? Biceps, flex the elbow. Very simple things, you know, triceps, extend the elbow. I mean, very simple things like that, that is going to be very valuable for you when designing your programming so that you pick movements that aren't redundant. So I get a bunch of comments on these videos like, oh, you know you're sitting on a shoulder press, that's such a noob mistake. Like, no shit, I know I'm sitting on a shoulder press. But the reason why I'm sitting here is because I like this machine, I find it comfortable, I find it very easy for me to actually keep my elbows tucked and get a good degree of shoulder flexion, which is the role of the upper chest here. So just sort of having that understanding allows you to make really, really good programming decisions. Then obviously we have leverages, like where does a muscle actually have the most leverage to produce force? Where is it stronger? Where is it capable of producing more force? Where is it responsible for actually completing the movement? And that kind of comes with time, and obviously, you know, doing your research and watching some good creators will sort of fill in those gaps for you over time. But if we talk about something like the chest, we know that the chest is very, very active in that mid to lengthen range. So when you're all the way flexed up here, that's going to be a lot of triceps and front delt. So the chest really isn't going to be working very well there. That's why a lot of people don't like hammer strength machines, myself included, because hammer strength have an ascending resistance profile. They get harder near the lockout. So when we look at a really good Nautilus machine like this, it's going to start pretty tough and get a little bit easier as we get to the top, which is exactly what we want for actually hitting the chest properly. So enough yapping. We got some incline, good mix of upper chest and some front delt and a little bit of side delt in here. And here we go. So we've got ourselves configured nicely. And here we go. Okay, take your time. We got 3 plates and a quarter on each side. Last time I got this for 5. Focus on technique, focus on intensity, get a good width. And here we go. Awesome. Got that for 6 this time. Some very nice progressive overload. Good technique, good form. I'm gonna keep going. Got a crazy angle here for this one, but we're on the pull-up machine here. I'm doing some very stable, hypertrophy-focused body weight pull-ups. But another thing that I sort of follow and believe in when talking about my lifting philosophy personally is training muscles where they have leverage to produce force, and also training them where they are strongest, where their force output is the highest. So a great example of this is, say, biceps, where the biceps might have the most amount of force production in the mid position, but might actually be most biased in that length and range. So the biceps are actually responsible for completing that lift, for completing that portion of the lift in the length and range. But if you're doing, say, a dumbbell curl or whatever, they're actually going to be strongest, producing most force in the mid position, despite there being some other actin tissue involved in that mid to short range. So small little nuance, but something to think about when programming your lifts. Here we go, we can do some body weight pull-ups here. Just one set as a substitute for lat pull downs. So here we go. I'm gonna stay very wide and focus on good intensity. Here we go. And that's it. Okay. 7 perfect reps there. That was awesome. We're gonna keep going. And the last thing I'll leave you guys with is bulking and cutting. This is something that I feel like I've been vindicated on over the years. That was really controversial for a long time, but I've never really done a bulk. It's never something I felt like I needed to do because I never saw a reason in arbitrarily gaining 15, 20 pounds of fat. I've fluctuated, my body weight has changed over time. I find in that first 6 to 12 months of lifting, there will be a time where your body weight adjusts to maintain a new kind of baseline. And obviously you are gaining muscle rather quick in that time. So there will be a period where your body adjusts to maintain a new baseline and sort of reaches an equilibrium where it's like, okay, if you're starting off kind of gaunt at 140, we're gonna bump up to 150 or 155 and remain there. And that's kind of what happened to me in my first 12 months. But I will say that for most people, bulking and cutting is not necessary. If you are making progress, you are fine. And I get a lot of comments on my videos like, oh, how could you worry about this little detail when you've never even done a bulk? But I've still managed to consistently progress over the years. And when I tell people I've been lifting for only 3 years, they're like, hey, you look pretty good. And again, I do the best I can. I understand my genetics are a major factor at play, but I'm pretty happy with my progress for lifting a little over 3 years now. I do feel like it's pretty good. So for me at least, I've never felt the need to do a bulk because it hasn't been necessary. If there were a time where I said I need to gain every ounce of muscle I possibly can because I'm trying to compete by the age of 25 and I don't care if I look a little fluffy, that's fine. Then do a bulk and up your calories a little bit. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's more like a need. As the need comes to bulk, you bulk. If you don't need to bulk, then why are you bulking? It's a very simple thing, but it's a part of my philosophy. I don't have a summer cut and a winter arc bulk. I try to just continuously get stronger over time. That's kind of how I set it up for me, for my clients, and it works pretty good. People are pretty happy, and you could be in that maintenance mode for a good while as long as you are programming intelligently and actually making progress. So if you're programming with way too much volume, if you're not making the right decisions with your diet, it's very possible you'll hit a brick wall pretty quick. But if you are making good decisions, it's not something I'd worry about as much. So those are just my thoughts on that. Obviously meal timing, I like to put my carbs pretty close before my lifts when I can. I'm not super obsessive about it. If I have some carbs after my lift, that's cool too. Or even at night, that's fine. I just like to put the majority of my carbs for the day before my lift. I feel like that's kind of, common approach nowadays. So I'm gonna do our front delt press here and get sort of locked in. So last warm up. Okay, that was pretty good. Last warm up rep there. We're throwing in some front delt press here to get some front and side delt involved. We got 190 and try to really limit body English and cheating as much as possible. And focus on the front and side delts here. So here we go. Keep my back against the pad. Minimal amount of cheating, minimal amount of other involvement. And here we go. Let's do it. Oh God. All right, let's lighten slightly. 180. Here we go. No cheating. 170. 170. Overshot a little bit. All right. 170. Oh my God. Someone asked me if I fake my grunts for more engagement, and I'm like, that's pretty funny if I would have had that idea a while ago, but no, these are all real. I hope you guys found this useful. Hope you enjoyed. Let me know what questions you have down below. Again, you can book a call or apply for coaching in the form down below. And that's it. Thank you guys for watching.